The massive starship Vanguard cruised silently through the depths of space, a colossal silhouette against the stars. Humanity had come far, further than anyone had imagined. No longer confined to Earth, they now commanded fleets that explored the galaxy, facing threats and forging alliances with alien species. But now, something dark loomed on the horizon, something that threatened the fragile peace humanity had struggled to maintain. In the heart of the ship, Captain Marcus Vallon stood before the bridge's large viewport, watching the stars streak past. He was a man hardened by decades of service, his dark hair speckled with gray, and his eyes sharp with experience. His uniform was impeccable, as was his reputation. However, a weight rested on his shoulders that few could understand. The fate of humanity and its allies hung in the balance. Beside him stood First Officer Arya Voss, a brilliant tactician who had been by his side since the early days of the galactic expansion. Her piercing blue eyes scanned the holographic data projected in front of her, her brow furrowed in concentration. They had been through countless battles together, and this upcoming mission felt heavier than any before. "Captain," Arya said, breaking the silence, "we're nearing this system. Intel reports that the Drivak have established a forward base in orbit around the fourth planet." The Drivak were one of the most formidable alien species humanity had encountered. Cold, calculating, and relentless, they had conquered countless worlds, enslaving those who resisted. Humanity had stood against them for years, their battles growing more intense with each encounter. But this time, it wasn't just a skirmish. This time, the Drivak had found something ancient, something powerful. "Do we have any confirmation on what they've discovered?" Vallon asked, his voice steady but with an edge of concern. Arya shook her head. "Not yet. All we know is that it's an artifact, something tied to the first ones, the ancient race that vanished eons ago. If the Drivak can harness its power." Vallon didn't need her to finish. The stakes were high. Humanity had heard rumors of the first ones for centuries, an advanced civilization that had reached the pinnacle of technological achievement before mysteriously disappearing. Some said they ascended beyond the physical realm. Others believed they destroyed themselves. Whatever the truth, any remnants of their technology were highly sought after by every species in the galaxy. And now, the Drivak had their hands on one of these relics. "We can't let them use it," Vallon said firmly. "Prepare the strike team. We're going in." The briefing room aboard the Vanguard was filled with tension. Elite soldiers from across humanity's colonies sat around the long table, their expressions serious. They were the best of the best, chosen for this mission because failure was not an option. Captain Vallon stood at the head of the table, flanked by Arya and Commander Jason Trent, the head of the strike team. Trent was a battle-hardened veteran, his muscular frame and steely gaze a testament to the countless battles he'd survived. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vallon began, his voice commanding attention, "you all know why you're here. The Drivak have located an artifact of immense power, something that could tip the balance of the war in their favor. We can't allow that to happen." He gestured to the holographic map floating above the table, displaying the Drivak base in orbit around the fourth planet. "Our mission is to infiltrate the base, neutralize their defenses, and retrieve the artifact. This will not be easy. The Drivak are heavily fortified, and they won't hesitate to kill us all. But we have one advantage." Arya stepped forward, taking over the briefing. "We've managed to obtain the schematics of their base. There's a weak point here, an access tunnel that leads directly to the artifact chamber. If we can get in undetected, we have a chance." The soldiers exchanged glances. They had faced impossible odds before, but this mission was different. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. Trent stood, his voice rough but filled with confidence. "You heard the captain. We go in fast, we go in quiet, and we don't leave without that artifact. The Drivak think they're unbeatable, but we're about to show them what humanity is made of." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. The team stood, gathering their weapons and preparing for what lay ahead. The drop pod shuddered as it descended through the atmosphere of the fourth planet, its surface a barren, rocky wasteland. Inside, the strike team was silent, each soldier focused on the mission ahead. The glow of the planet's distant sun illuminated their armored figures, making them look like shadows of war. Captain Vallon sat in the cockpit, his hands gripping the controls as he piloted the pod toward the Drivak base. His heart raced, but his mind was calm. He had led missions like this before, but the stakes had never been higher. "ETA 1 minute, he called over the comms. "Prepare for entry." The team braced themselves as the pod made its final descent. slamming into the surface with a bone-rattling impact. The doors hissed open, and the soldiers rushed out, their weapons drawn. The barren landscape stretched out before them, the massive silhouette of the Drivak base looming in the distance. Trent led the team forward, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of enemy patrols. They moved swiftly and silently, using the rocky terrain for cover as they approached the access tunnel identified in the briefing. Eyes open, Trent whispered, his voice barely audible over the comms. "We don't know what kind of security they have in place." The team reached the entrance to the tunnel, a narrow, jagged opening carved into the side of a cliff. Valen took point, leading them inside. The air was cold and stale, the walls slick with moisture. Their footsteps echoed in the confined space, but they pressed on, their senses on high alert. As they ventured deeper into the tunnel, the temperature dropped further, and the passage widened into a large chamber. In the center, suspended by intricate machinery, was the artifact, an obelisk-like structure that glowed with a faint, otherworldly light. "There it is," Arya breathed, her eyes wide with awe. "The artifact of the first ones." Valen's eyes narrowed. "Move fast, we don't have much time." Trent signaled the team to secure the perimeter while Arya and Valen approached the artifact. As they drew closer, a low hum filled the chamber, and the obelisk's glow intensified. "Be careful," Valen warned. "We don't know what this thing is capable of." Arya nodded, her hands carefully working to disconnect the artifact from its power source, but as she did, a deafening alarm blared through the chamber, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. "They know we're here," Trent shouted, his weapon at the ready. The Drivak soldiers poured into the chamber from hidden entrances, their sleek, insect-like armor gleaming in the artifact's light. The strike team opened fire, their weapons lighting up the darkness as they engaged the enemy. "Hold the line," Valen ordered, firing at the oncoming Drivak soldiers. "Arya, how much longer?" "Almost there," Arya yelled over the sound of gunfire, her fingers flying across the control panel. The battle raged on, the strike team fighting with everything they had. The Drivak were ruthless, but the humans were determined. They couldn't afford to fail, not now. Finally, with a soft click, the artifact disengaged from the machinery, and Arya carefully lifted it from its cradle. "Got it," she shouted. Valen nodded, his voice firm. "Fall back to the surface, we're getting out of here." The team began their retreat, but the Drivak forces were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Valen's heart pounded in his chest as he covered Arya's retreat, firing at the advancing soldiers. One by one, the strike team made it to the tunnel entrance, but Valen knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Commander," Trent's voice crackled over the comms, "we need an extraction, now." Valen activated his comms. "Vanguard, we need pickup ASAP, hostiles are closing in." The Vanguard's pilot responded quickly. "Copy that, Captain, we're inbound." As the team reached the surface, the sound of approaching Drivak forces grew louder. They had no choice but to make a final stand while they waited for extraction. Valen, Arya, Trent, and the remaining soldiers formed a tight defensive perimeter, their weapons blazing as they fought off the relentless onslaught. "Hold the line," Valen shouted, his voice carrying above the chaos. The Vanguard shuttle appeared on the horizon, descending rapidly toward their position. The strike team fought with everything they had, knowing that survival was just within reach. The Drivak were closing in, but they refused to fall. The shuttle landed with a thunderous roar, its doors sliding open. "Go, go, go," Trent yelled, ushering the team inside. Valen and Arya were the last to board, firing at the advancing Drivak soldiers as the shuttle lifted off, leaving the enemy forces behind. As they ascended into the sky, the planet's surface growing distant, Valen exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been